I welcome you to the new lesson. Before we move on to the next block, I suggest we improve the current state of our work. I really don't like the visual part of what we see in Gutenberg. Let's focus on getting rid of the step where we duplicate these things. In fact, I'm already duplicating in the first block, variables with colors. This is incorrect. We create these variables for this purpose, and we should not duplicate them in these files. Editor titles. The same goes for the wrapper. Imagine if I have to change this width, then I would have to search globally through search, find this value everywhere, and change it. That is, the entire logic of development is lost. Therefore, now we will devise a system so that, firstly, variables are loaded in Gutenberg and fonts work across the entire site since we connected a custom one. And parts of CSS, styles such as the wrapper, which should be present, both here and there as well. We will assign it to a specific file to avoid duplicating it dozens of times for each block separately. Let's move to the directory of our template. In general, for working with full site editing and block themes, usually styles and things related to styles are set through JSON in the FEMSN file. We will probably get to it today as well, but for now, we should create a new CSS file. Let's name it editor_style.cs. This file will be for the purpose of, we will duplicate the CSS that must be loaded in the admin panel as well. Therefore, I'm cutting this wrapper from the edit file and adding it here. In other words, essentially, I will no longer use it in other blocks. And in this block, I have it in a separate file, and now we will connect this file. I didn't enable the compiler, and the block isn't compiling, but these changes are physically present, so let me enable it. Alright, it's enabled. Next, import the template. We go to the functions.php file. We have functions.php here. There is a hook that loads styles and scripts, but this hook attaches to the onQ and script. This is the front-end territory. I need to load it now in the Gutenberg area in the admin panel. Therefore, I will use a different hook. I will add the comment, create this function, and name it game store. So there is an unwritten rule for programming in WordPress. Always, whatever you write, use your own prefix. It doesn't have to be that long. It can be 2 letters, Jess. For example, I usually use the site Slack as a prefix. And name it Gutenberg styles. And I will attach sit to the hook in Q block editor assets. So for add action, I set the first parameter as the name of this hook. If it doesn't autofill, I'll have to write it manually. Very quickly. I'm used to auto-completion, and when I expect it, it doesn't want to fill in. And we pass our function as the second parameter. Auto-completion stopped working because the monthly limit for Copilot was exhausted. But if we need AI assistance, we can simply open the ChatG5 tab and ask it there. There's no problem with that. So let's continue. In this cookie, we can load scripts, load styles, and load fonts. Let's load a font. We are interested once again in loading this Google font, so using PMP style, I load it with the same key. This function will generate a link to it for us, but I load it inside another cookie so that it loads in the admin panel. Next, everything with this, we will connect this editor style. using the function addEditorStyle. And we will set the path to this file. For the addEditorStyle function, the file path is set relative to the theme directory. So it will start from assets.css.editorStyle. Next, these variables. We also need to get rid of them from here and rearrange their initialization. Also in editor style, so they work in the admin panel. Only the light version. Dark. We override the version only on the front end. In the admin panel, we don't have a dark version. We also created it for some block, so in principle, we can go in and remove these variables for the block. Hero. We won't duplicate the code. The initialization will be in the editor style. And let's see now what's happening. Updating the admin panel, since there are no styles. Let's take a look regarding the fonts. Fonts are there, fonts are loading, only here is this file. Maybe this function doesn't work specifically with this item. Let's try then such an approach. Means the path to the files is get template directory URI and ch. As a dependency, by the way, we can specify as a dependency the loading of Google Fonts. Let's test this approach. That is a regular in Q. Suspected that this editor needs to be hooked on init on after frame setup, but not on the block editor. Maybe it's unrelated, but still, yes, it turns out I'm getting old because I used a completely different function here. I took the one above with the Google font, and that's the one being loaded, but not mine. Here, the problem is probably not with the cookies, but that I copied the wrong function. And let's revert it back. Editor style. Let's check. Now, it loads wonderfully. Variables from the file. And the style of this block will make a few more manipulations related to fonts. The font loads, but as you can see, it's not set. Also, the default sizes are currently 24, whereas we have it set to 20 on beta. We'll perform these manipulations through the JSON block, as that's generally where they should be done. This JSON block is created to pass styles in the form of arrays. It's inconvenient, and I still haven't gotten used to working with it, so I always prioritize working with CSS files, but some aspects still have to be overridden. Firstly, we need to override this font because this font is essentially applied to the system. Urbanist. We will write it like this, and by default, it will use Urbanist everywhere. That's the first thing. Secondly, let's look for the key in styles. In typography, I think it's also in styles. But not just the typography key, but specifically the typography section was inserted. There are so many of them here. This is all style, this is our section. And essentially typography globally for the entire site, the font size is set, this variable, the font family variable system. And just now we set ourselves to position 1, line height 17. I think mainly on our site. But in different blocks, it's different. If I do it, I think I won't be wrong. Anyway, I don't have the task of achieving 100% style compliance. After all, the course is more about WordPress. But in terms of font size, we will go up to where this medium variable is initialized. By the way, this variable is dynamic. So this ending, above we set sizes for it, and different blocks have such options. For example, the medium, font size, small size. This is a large font size, and accordingly, this part of the variable will change and will select the necessary font size. Here, by the medium key, you see we have moved up to the background site section, and for small it is rem, for medium, which by default is 20 pixels for us, Anfahrschwurtmann. So the base value is taken as 16 pixels. Well, I think somewhere it comes out, we leave the rest as is. So if in the admin panel they click large, then instead of 20 pixels, it will be 2 rem. That will be 32. 16 multiplied by 2 is 32. Well, let's take a look now. So we change the font, change the size, and this JSON is loaded both on the front end and the back end in the admin panel. Let's wait for it to load. Yes, it's already visible. The size is 20 pixels. No, not even 20, but actually not. Now we will convert this. And the font is loaded in Urbanist. Wonderful, but here it's a question for CSS. Yes, again, it needs to be set in 2 lines. There's something else that needs to be fixed. Let's finish with the rems first. So 20 pixels in rems is 1.25, not 1.3, 1.25. The second point. Still, Gutenberg has a separate file with styles, and for example, it sets its own margins on the P tag, top and bottom. We set ours to 48, but on top it has, as you can see, 1M, since it's kind of global from Gutenberg itself. To override such styles, I take its class. And the file editor is intended for this, meaning this file from which we have essentially removed it now. And here, margin, top. I can override the styles, and now the description will move a little higher. So here we have a back, a piece is visible, but it is being compressed by something and is displayed poorly. So that's it. We've reset that. We can check the H2. Of course, if something is being overridden, I think the size is clearly not 30, but larger. And we don't have the size here because we initialized them right here. Therefore, we will need them as well in principle. And the button, if this button is used in many blocks, then yes. If it's only in the hero, then it's already there. We don't need it. I'm only taking the headings, that is, global elements with a button. We'll figure it out later. And their initialization here for the admin panel, I duplicated as well. In essence, I wanted to avoid duplication, but still. Some elements, it turns out, I duplicate in 2 files. You could completely avoid it by cutting them out from Game Store and loading editor style on the front as well, but that's not correct. After all, we have already named it editor style. This approach is okay, and we will stop here. And another point, in WordPress and generally in many layouts, headers are often given a top margin, but we kind of reset it. For this reason, to avoid resetting a paragraph like this in every block or header, I will do it here. Margin, top, but again, this is if you specifically agree with such a record in CSS, because many developers prefer to have a margin top on the header. So the sizes have adjusted and we've lost the font family. So let's remove Urbanist from here. I don't know why it interrupted. Alright, it's much better now. Next, in CSS, we'll trim these headers so that there are only 2 lines here. Here are 4 lines. We do this in the block, meaning with global styles. Seems like we're done. In the block, we do this for style, since we need to load it on the front as well. Looking for the header. Here it is, HSchool. We'll close the overflow. Display the one block. Maximum height. So for 2 lines, we have 100 pixels. We'll set the time. So we'll set it 60 rem line height variama, which is a term used in typography. Text overflow ellipsis. Line clamp exactly 4 lines. So now at this point we should have 2 lines up to line height. Three twelfths. And in the admin panel, the style will also be selected. Well, so here is this header. It has a marker that we didn't set, so it needs to be reset. And 4 lines. We'll set for the description. Also inserted. So here we don't need 4, we need 2 lines. We trimmed them due to this maximum width. But here we have 2 only. The excerpt we will have 4. Essentially, this trimming is affected by the height we set. We limited the entire 136 pixels, so 136 is 8.5 frames. This maximum height essentially determines and cuts the number of lines. Here are 4 lines. Lane height is set slightly above. As well as in, let's update in the admin panel. Now it looks better. Let's check this last moment with the wrapper. It is clearly not centered properly in the center. So it affects this. This is the width because we set it in viewport, but we don't have a viewport here. And since there is a site, button interferes. If I set 100% using the calc function, 100%. Plus how much take this variable in it, how much rima. Come on, I'll test it like this for now. Plus 3, rem. And now I occupy the necessary width. That is essentially, to be more accurate, we need not to set the window width to 100 viewports, but to calculate it in percentages. Therefore, I either override it in the editor, but it would be more correct to change it. Right here, set it using the calc function. 100% plus, and here we will make a mathematical variable for the left padding plus the variable for the right, with the variable for the left padding above us. Above us there is no wrapper, so it's not a problem. We use the old approach. First, we update on the front end, check it. We ended up with a lesson more about CSS styles. So everything is perfect on the front end. In the admin panel, we will update, and everything should also be perfectly centered. However, in this lesson, we built a structure, a system, where without unnecessary duplication of variables or styles in Gutenberg, we will achieve 100% match to what we have on the front end, essentially what we initially wanted to achieve, as you can see. A wonderful job has been done. We'll stop this lesson here. See you in the next lesson. But before we say goodbye, I will close this branch, so I will launch another commit to the repository. And it will remain to merge it with the main, which I will do outside of the video recording. See you in the next lesson where we will continue working on new blocks.